We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Monday, August 10th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Hire.
Great here today.
Good to have you. We also have Kyun with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. And both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So we're kicking off a new work week with a look at a Korean series that's sparking conversations both in Korea and also around the world. So Netflix's Teach You a Lesson has made it into top 10 in 48 countries, bringing attention to a fictional world where a government agency uses punishment and retribution to restore order in schools. So while a school obviously does take a bit of an extreme approach, it touches on very real debates surrounding school violence, teacher authority, and how far society should go to protect the education system. So you obviously didn't grow up in a Korean school education system. So what did you think of this drama series?
First of all, I absolutely enjoy the Korean series. I was fully immersed in it up until the last episode. And like you said, I didn't attend any of the schools here in Korea, and I only actually heard about what schools were like in the past and currently in Korea, here in Korea. So growing up in Australia and receiving primary, secondary, and tertiary education, it was almost like a culture shock watching the series. Now, the biggest difference would have to be the amount of influence parents had in schools and over teachers, seeing how a student can get away with many wrongdoings just because of their parents' social status is something unheard of here back in Australia. Also, the lack of respect some students showed towards their teachers seemed a little too extreme at first, but then I know it wasn't all fictional and made up, because it was all over in the news in Korea a couple of years ago where, students were actually being very violent towards teachers and showed actually little to zero respect. Now, it clearly showed that the teachers' rights here in Korea was slowly depreciating, and it's a serious matter, and this drama obviously depicted it in a very clear, straightforward way. And those two things were personally a bit of a shock to me at first, because like I said, I didn't attend school here in Korea, and it was very different to how I actually grew up back in Australia.
Right, so unlike you actually went to a school in Korea growing up. So do you feel like this was an accurate depiction? What were your thoughts watching the film?
Yes, so first I also really enjoyed Teach You a Lesson series as well. And I think actually some parts were exaggerated to make the story more dramatic. But at the same time, the series is actually based on the real issues. So I think it reflects quite a lot of what Korean schools are actually like today. When I was in school in Korea, school violence was actually less serious than what we see in the series. Teachers also had more authority, and parents were not as involved in schools as they seem to be today. But I've heard that some of these problems have become worse since then. So I think what we see in the series could actually feel quite realistic for students today. And even when I was a student, we already have cases of school violence, students talking back to teachers, and parents getting too involved in their children's education.
Right, so it sounds like the drama isn't simply about fictional events, but about reflecting changing relationships between teachers, students, and parents. So we're going to talk more about this, but first, let's take a look at the screen. One of the biggest social conversations in Korea in recent years has been whether teachers have lost too much authority in the classroom. In a country where education remains a top priority, finding the right balance between maintaining order and ensuring fair discipline has become a growing challenge. The debate has intensified amid rising cases involving teachers facing complaints, legal disputes, and even severe classroom violence. So today on News Generation, we take a closer look at Korea's new support system that connects teachers affected by violations of their rights with dedicated officials, why such a system is being introduced, and what concerns remain about teachers' authority. Just as we saw in a video, concerns over teachers' rights have led to calls for stronger support systems, especially when educators face disputes or complaints alone. And one example is in Gyeonggi-do province, which has introduced a new system aimed at providing teachers with more immediate and comprehensive support when their rights are violated. So Hayo, can you tell us more about how this new support system plans to safeguard teachers' rights?
Yes, so Gyeonggi province is home to about 1/3 of Korea's students and schools. And the Gyeonggi Office of Education is now introducing a new system called Teacher Rights Protection Officers. The idea is to make sure teachers do not have to deal with these cases on their own. When a teacher's rights are violated, an officer will be assigned to the teacher and provide support throughout the process. That includes helping with the initial response, joining investigations, providing legal advice, offering psychological support, and following up after the case. The goal is to bring together support that was previously spread across different organizations, so teachers can get help more quickly and more directly. The officers will include former and current educators, as well as professionals with experience in areas such as law, medicine, and policing.
So the goal is not only to respond after incidents happen, but also to make sure teachers have someone to turn to throughout the entire process. But the push for this kind of dedicated support comes amid growing concerns that many teachers are struggling with increasing pressure inside and outside the classroom. So why has a dedicated support system become something that people are talking about? Why has it become so necessary?
We can gain a better understanding once we actually find out where teachers receive most stress in classrooms. So let's take a look at the screen. According to the OECD's Tally's 2024 survey, the biggest source of stress for South Korean middle school teachers was actually dealing with complaints from parents and guardians of students. The survey also found that Korean teachers were more likely to report having experienced threats or even verbal abuse from students compared to the OECD average. Now, in fact, 1 in 5 teachers have actually said that they would actually like to leave the profession. Again, highlighting how demanding the current situation is in the teaching environment here in Korea. And perhaps the biggest concern is that teachers say they spend too much time and energy, solving these disputes and trying to deal with the complaints from the parents and the guardians, rather than actually teaching in the classrooms, where for teachers, their main role is to actually just to teach, educate, and to kind of interact with students in the most, pleasant, fun way. And that's how I grew up back in Australia. But nowadays, we're seeing more conflict arise. And teachers are dealing with so much stress, actually trying to solve these issues, because it doesn't end in the classroom. It goes all the way to the parents, and the parents come back to the school, talk with the principals, and the matter gets actually worse even for teachers. So just like what we saw from the survey, it shows that clearly South Korean teachers actually suffer a lot of stress from the parents' complaints, and of course from the verbal and physical abuses from students as well.
So these figures highlight how the role of teachers has expanded beyond teaching, with many now spending significant time dealing with conflicts and complaints. And this is not just a concern reflected in surveys. Many educators say these challenges are continuing in real classrooms today. So specifically, what kinds of teachers' rights violations are happening, or what are we seeing in classrooms these days, Hayum?
Yes, so teacher rights violations are still happening in real classrooms today. So according to the Gyeonggi Institute of Education, the number of cases officially recognized as violations of teachers' educational activities has exceeded 1,000 for 2 consecutive years. And according to a teachers' union survey, about 80% of teachers said they worry that they could face a child abuse accusation. There have also been some unusual cases. For example, in May, a teacher received a complaint because a parent said the teacher did not take enough photos of their child during a school trip. In another case, a student hit a teacher in the face with a hand holding a mobile phone after the teacher told the students to stop playing games during class. There was also a case where a teacher was reported for child abuse simply for opening the classroom windows because a student felt cold. So these cases show how difficult it can be for teachers to balance their educational duties with concerns from students and parents.
So these cases show why discussions over teacher protection remain ongoing. But they also raise questions about how to protect teachers' authority while ensuring teachers' rights are respected. So to hear more about the realities teachers face on the ground, we're going to speak with an educator currently working in Korea. And that conversation is coming up right after break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
We're joined now by Seoyoung, a teacher in Korea, to share her perspective from the classroom. So hello, thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So Seoyoung, how do you and your colleagues feel about having these dedicated officers to help protect teachers' rights and also authority?
It felt a bit surreal at first to see that dedicated officers for teachers' rights are no longer just in dramas, but in reality now. At the same time, it made me feel pretty sad because it reminded me how serious this issue has become. Because dedicated roles like this usually only get created when a problem gets severe and happens way too often. I think it's telling us how much our education system is struggling right now. And of course, we also have expectations for its effect too.
I do really agree with you. My next question to you is, what challenges do teachers have when communicating with today's students and parents?
First of all, teachers need to be really careful with students because people are so sensitive about students' rights nowadays. Teachers are worried that if something goes wrong, they'll have to take all the blame alone. So naturally, they become very hesitant. They just hope no problems happen and try not to get too deeply involved. And at the same time, many parents view teachers as service providers. They try to fit the teacher to their own child's needs and constantly evaluate them. Often they think they know their own child best. Well, that may be true, but when it comes to school education, they still need to trust teachers and leave things to them. And I think it's easy for parents to forget that teachers are also human and they have limits too. And on top of this, teachers simply don't have enough time or mental space to deal with these demands. When teachers are burned out, it's almost impossible to build deep, meaningful connections with either students or parents. And because of this, there is a lack of real trust or deep connection. So basic consideration and healthy boundaries are ruined. So this causes misunderstandings, conflicts, and hard feelings. And usually teachers have to deal with all this stress by themselves. So I think these are the biggest challenges teachers face when communicating with students and teachers and parents today.
Thank you. And this is our last question, actually. So what changes are needed to better protect teachers, and how do you hope this system will help?
First, I think how people think about teachers needs to change. We need to have a clear idea of a teacher's actual role, boundaries, and we need to legally define the scope of a teacher's responsibility. Next, reducing teachers' heavy workload to give them some mental breathing room is truly necessary. Also, if some problem happens, it should be much easier for teachers to get protection right away. It's unreasonable to expect a teacher to handle entire process alone because they're already too busy and already dealing with the difficult conflict. This will cause them extra stress and will delay the problem solving. So through the system, I expect everyone to come to a clear understanding of each other's rights and roles. And I hope dedicated experts take full charge of these cases and simplify the entire process. If specialists handle the investigation and response, problems can be solved much faster and more properly. I recently watched a news video about these dedicated officers, and there was one comment that caught my attention. It was that unless we teach them with violence, like in the drama, this problem will never be solved. Yeah, that hit hard, but violence can't be involved in reality. And also we know that punishment is not the ultimate goals. Instead, I hope the system in the end serves as the effective preventive measure. And I hope that eventually teachers, students, and parents build mutual trust and respect so that one day we won't even need this kind of external protection anymore.
I also hope that actually leads to real changes, because I can only imagine how frustrating it must be when parents, you mentioned earlier that some parents do feel like they know what's best, which makes it really difficult, I can imagine, for teachers to actually do their job. So, I mean, thank you so much for sharing a snapshot of what it's like on the ground. So thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
So we just heard from an educator in Korea about the challenges teachers face today, from changing relationships with students and parents to the need for stronger support systems in schools. So while many welcome the idea of providing teachers with dedicated support, some say the success of the system will depend on whether it leads to actual meaningful changes in the classroom. So what are the current expectations and also the current concerns surrounding the system?
So experts are generally positive about having education office provide more direct support to teachers. But they also say that protecting teachers' rights must go hand in hand with protecting students' right to learn and maintaining trust with parents. After the 2023 incident at Seoul Elementary School, which raised serious concerns about parental pressure and teachers' rights, there were growing calls for stronger protection for teachers, and several new measures were introduced. But there have still been concerns that teachers have not felt enough change in their everyday work. And because this new system mainly provides support after a problem occurs, there are concerns that it may not become a fundamental solution unless it has enough staff and the authority to actually help teachers.
So while the system is seen as a step forward, some believe protecting teachers' rights must go hand in hand with protecting students' learning rights and rebuilding trust with parents. But Korea is not alone in facing challenges related to teacher authority and classroom management. We can also do with learning from how other countries are doing. So how are they protecting teachers' rights over there in other countries?
Countries like the United States, Germany, and Japan have also faced, verbal abuses, threats, or other forms of, kind of violence against teachers. But many have put legal and institutional safeguards in place to protect the teachers and the teachers' rights when actually they have to carry out their duties of teaching students. So in some states in the US, for example, assaulting or threatening a teacher can carry tougher penalties compared to those of ordinary citizens who actually violate a similar case. Now, in Germany, the general consensus is that every party involved in the education system have to be treated equally and should be balanced out. So while students have their free right to actually, express their feelings against teachers, or if they feel violated or their rights taken away, teachers as well, they are actually protected by institutional mechanisms to protect them. And they also run programs aimed at preventing violence against school staff as well. Now, meanwhile, in Japan, they have systems in schools which, and also the local education authorities, where they work together to deal with these kind of complaints from teachers rather than leaving teachers as individuals on their own to actually handle them alone. So while no country can completely eliminate violations of teachers' rights, the focus is making sure teachers do not have to deal with these problems on their own. And the broader goal is to build a system where schools and education authorities stand behind teachers, allowing them to just purely focus in the classroom to the students of actually educating and teaching them, rather than spending, like I said, all their time and effort and stress into actually dealing with complaints from students and from parents alike.
Right, so these examples show that while teachers' rights violations remain a challenge worldwide, many countries are beginning to focus on ensuring teachers are not left to handle conflicts alone. So now, shifting back to Korea, attention is now turning to how this new system will be implemented and whether it can bring lasting change to schools. So, Haya, what's next for efforts to protect teachers' rights, and what challenges still remain that people have to solve?
So I think the fact that more than 35 people applied for every position in the recruitment process itself shows actually how much attention this issue is getting now. So Gyeonggi-do province is leading the way, and other regions, including Chungcheongnam-do, are also considering introducing a similar system. If this awareness continues to spread and more regions adopt the system, I think protecting teachers' rights could become more of a reality. And even applicants who were not selected for the official positions will be able to take part in a citizen teacher rights protection group, helping to expand the network for protecting teachers' rights. So I think the next step will be seeing whether this system can actually make teachers feel that they are no longer dealing with these problems alone.
Right, and that goes along with what our Zoom guest Soyoung said earlier about how she feels like she wants to feel like she's protected so she can actually do her job. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
You know, introducing a new system like this with a clear goal of supporting teachers and making them feel that they're not alone in these kind of disputes is definitely, we're heading in the right direction. But obviously, it's going to take time to see whether it's really effective or not.
Right.
Because through a lot of trial and error where these cases actually arise in the real case scenarios. However, this may at the same time cause backlash from parents and students saying that, oh, they're taking away our rights and like the government and the educational system is supporting the teachers rather than us. So at the end of the day, I think taking a step back and just really realizing where each party in the education system, the duties they actually play. So for example, teachers, they're there to just educate the students, to teach them, to teach them all the things they need to learn at school. Whereas students should be there to actually learn from teachers, not to fight back or retaliate, and to cause any trouble. And parents should let their kids know that they're going to school to learn, and they're going to make mistakes and they might get in trouble, but that's all part of growing up and learning from school.
Right.
So if everyone can kind of understand each other's roles and not kind of step over that line, because once you do, that's when trouble happens. And obviously we've heard from a real teacher in the field, her level of stress comes from these kind of areas where parents kind of get too involved, maybe become too sensitive.
Right.
But at the end of the day, these teachers are also precious sons and daughters of their own parents. So having that kind of mutual respect will have, I guess, a positive effect in public schools, not just public schools, schools in Korea moving forward.
And going off of what you said earlier about how I feel like parents also have a big role in mitigating this situation, because kids will probably look at their parents, how their parents are treating the teachers as well. So yeah, hopefully, this is just in Gyeonggi-do province, but hopefully if it works, we'll see it happen in other areas in Korea as well. So protecting teachers and protecting students should never be competing goals, which is why the real challenge is building a classroom where both can thrive. Teacher authority, student rights, and parental trust all play a role in a healthy education system. And finding the right balance between them may be the most important lesson of it all. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of New Generation. But Newshan will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Hire.
Thank you for having me today.
And also Kyun.
It's always a pleasure.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully this was a reminder that building better classrooms begins long before the first lesson starts. We are News Generation.